Hello, this is John Colchak Pertwee, and welcome to the Cinema of Strange. I know that during this pocket-sized review, you've all been very interested to know what type of film we're going to be talking about next. Well, I was going to discuss something along the lines of maybe the third of the Saw films, or the fourth in the series of I Know What Pencil You Collected Last Winter. But this time around, I want to talk about a film that I've been specifically asked to talk about, and that is Q, the Winged Serpent. Now, Q, the Winged Serpent came out during the 1980s, and it stars the marvellous Michael Moriarty, who a lot of people say I look a lot like. I don't know if you'll agree there. But of course, obviously, I look a lot like him, and he looks a lot like me, although I don't think I would be... I think he would be fairly flattered if he thought that he looked like me, but I myself am fairly flattered to think that my arm looks a lot like him. Obviously his arm. Now, Q the Winged Serpent, or Q the Winged Serpent as it's called when it was shown on BBC Two, dealt with a giant Aztec creature, the Quetzalcoatl, which lived atop the Chrysler Building in America. It was made by Larry Cohen, and it is completely bananas. A group of Aztec followers intent on creating the creature and bringing it back to life, making it, praying it into existence, as it were. Of course, a great film, really good. And you get to see from the picture of Quetzalcoatl's eye view as he attacks people in swimming pools and picks them off rooftops and things like that. And of course, goes back to nestle on the rooftop of the Chrysler Building, which of course now is benchmark, and that is actually where Quetzalcoatl lives in real life. This film was shown as part of the Movie Drone series during the 1990s, I do believe, and it is a true gem. Q the Winged Serpent is a must-see, if only for the fact that it takes the creature features of the 1950s and 60s and brings them bang up to date for the 1980s. The other film that I want to talk about tonight is one that I've been told to talk about a lot, which is Lair of the Whiteworm. Now, Lair of the Whiteworm is a particular favourite of mine, and it's by a completely marvellous director called Ken Russell, who'd previously given us such films as the Devils and Litzomania and Hulse and Tommy, and of course managed to take the horror film genre by the throat and ram it up against the wall and aggressively slap it about the face. Lair of the Whiteworm was all set in England and starts off telling the tale of the Dampton worm, of which it's worshipped by the delightful Amanda Donahoe in some very slinky costumes. A great amount of British character actors are in this film, and including a very early role for Hugh Grant, who just basically played the part, and as he would, but manages to perfectly stand up for his role and defend the castle against the giant slithering beast, which lives in an actual cave. Now, along the way, Amanda Donahoe steals the film, and some great graphic imagery, and some of the things that you will see in this will, in fact, stay with you forever. One particular part that stays in my mind is Amanda Donahoe as the lady of the manor who worships the snake god itself, and she kind of lures this young Boy Scout who's walking along a lonely road in the pouring rain. She takes him back to her house, and kind of bewitches him is the best way I can put that. But obviously, along the way, there's a whole slew of snakebite references and giant skulls found by this mad, eccentric professor, played to the hilt by Peter Capaldi. So you've got everything in there, including a marvellous performance by the late, great Stratford Johns as Amanda Donahoe's butler. So The Lair of the Whiteworm and Q the Winged Serpent are two films to check out. You will not be disappointed, as normal. For these type of movies, you will remember that BBC Two used to show them, and I'd have no idea why they stopped screening such gems, such pure, iconic pieces of cinematic art. It makes no sense. I myself have great memories of the old classic BBC Two late-night horror films, and I remember living with my nan at the time and sitting in the day, kind of with the light on, transfixed by these things. Obviously, you'd see Oliver Reeves' werewolf, and you'd see giant beasts and creatures and things like that. Something that I'd never seen before, because obviously this is the days in pre-video. And I remember one particular night, the door creaking open and my nan's hand coming along the wall, creeping along the wall like that, just switching the light off and leaving me in the pitch black to watch these televisual horrors. But it's that kind of thing that stays in the memory. Now when young children are sat watching Freddy Krueger and Chucky on their phones and saying, yeah, well, it's okay, but it's not as good as Hostel 57, is it? Some kind of innocence has been lost. I don't know if it was lost via the might of the internet, or whether it was lost because horror films and the unpleasant cinema, and indeed the cinema of strange, was pushed to one side to make way for the bland and the uninteresting films that we kind of sometimes get dished up to us. A lot of the films now that are served up, even to the sci-fi and horror genre, are turgid CGI fests which have very little imagination or anything like that. And I think sometimes cinema and film itself is crying out for something that's going to be different. You can go on for hours, you can talk for hours about things and how films have changed and how they're not as good as the olden days. And of course the important thing to remember about cinema is it's moved forward. That's what's important, it's moved forward. But it's got to remember where its roots were. When it started out in the 1910s, in the 1920s, and in fact earlier than that, cinema managed to take its basic imagination and light it up by moving a ghostly figure across a screen. Even that, even the darkened image of Max Schreck as Nosferatu, managed to show that cinema is a very, very powerful medium. And by a guy in a room with a beard, sitting on a computer, typing in a few images, this is a dinosaur, this is a dog, this is a ghost, this is a monster, this is a set of scary stairs, it's not got any heart. And I think the trouble is with CGI, and a lot of the CGI is very convincing, but a lot of it isn't. And I think the trouble is audiences get very used to seeing that same sort of thing. When another dinosaur comes out, when another big monster comes out, they go, oh yeah, it's terrifying. And they seem to be lacking the actual jump factor, the thing that's making it scary. This is why films like Insidious have taken the genre, and they've got people in costumes, admittedly dressed as the lost souls, and with kind of a minimum of CGI. And I think that's what's needed in cinema today, a lessening of CGI. And to go back to the original jump scares, perhaps that's the way forward. Perhaps the way forward is just have completely CGI films with no actors, no plot, and no point. Who knows? What do I know? I just sit in a room and watch this. In fact, I'm trapped in here. What do I do? This is John Kolchak Pertwee, News at 10. I'll see you soon.